Hello friends, this is Sofia, your teacher, welcoming you to your favorite program, School Time, in your favorite regional channel. Okay, are you ready? Okay, today I am before you with a subject of your interest, that is cinema. The second unit of our English text consists of 3 chapters. And the first one, Project Tiger, it is a memoir written by Satyajit Ray. And the second one, it is a screenplay written by Majid Majidi. And the third one is a song, Blowing in the Wind. It is written by Bob Dylan. And this unit mostly dealing with films. No doubt everybody likes films. Am I right? Yes. And the world of celluloid has such a power to attract everyone towards it. Yes. And we often watch movies, don't we? Yes. Did you ever think about the filmmakers? What are their job? Is filmmaking an easy job? What do you think about that? Filmmaking involves a variety of stages, including an initial story or idea, and screenwriting, then casting, shooting, sound recording, and editing, then the pre-production activities. After that, the screening of the final product and the release of the film. So let us watch a video on Hollywood film making.
Hollywood is lying to us. Ever wonder how Hollywood regularly manages to fill their movies with creatures you've never seen before? Remember the zombies in I Am Legend? Where did they come from? If there's one thing to keep in mind when watching movies, it's that you can't ever believe everything you see. Some of the most iconic blockbuster scenes of all time were actually filmed in empty warehouses while your favorite actors pranced around in embarrassing green skin-tight onesies. Sorry to burst your bubble, but Mark Ruffalo doesn't turn into the Green Hulk without this onesie. Sit tight, we're going to be taking a look at Hollywood films before and after special effects. To begin, we'll take a look at 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming. But first, let's take a second to explain the green onesies, or morph suits, that we keep referring to. In the modern film industry, CGI has become more and more common. In the industry, green screening is formerly known as chroma keying or color keying. Basically, it refers to the process of singling out a particular color in an electronic image and then using computer software to make the color transparent. In plain English, once the scene is filmed, the green onesie and the green screen in the backdrop can both be made transparent or see-through. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Tom Holland's Peter Parker struggles to balance his life as an ordinary high school student with the responsibilities of being Spider-Man. Michael Keaton also stars as the villainous Vulture, an advanced weapons dealer bent on destruction. However, what made this superhero epic unique is the fact that Tom Holland actually filmed his scenes as Spider-Man in the genuine Spider-Man suit, which he felt added an element of authenticity to the film. However, that dedication didn't come without its setbacks. While filming scenes in the suit, Holland could not take it off, and so he'd have to pop a left eye out of the Spidey suit and slip a plastic straw into his mouth through the mask. Talk about sweat and tears. Speaking of tears, the CGI in I Am Legend is good enough to make you cry. Released in 2007, the post-apocalyptic classic stars Will Smith as U.S. Army virologist Robert Neville. The story set in New York City after a virus, which was originally created to cure cancer, has wiped out most of mankind, leaving Neville as the last human in New York. Well, aside from his undead companions. One of the most memorable scenes in the film involves Will Smith struggling with a rabid, virus-infected dog who's going for his jugular. However, the incredibly realistic dog was little more than a man in a green morph suit holding a vicious-looking puppet, while Smith did a convincing job of wrestling with it. What's more, over $40 million of the film's $150 million budget was spent on the CGI required to make the Manhattan wasteland that serves as the movie's setting. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to click that like button and leave us a comment. Your engagement is what keeps our special effects team going. Like Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Endgame is part of the MCU, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Now you have gone through the video. The advanced technologies made the filmmaking easy nowadays. The advanced technologies like 3D printing, virtual reality, autonomous drones and animation softwares made the filmmaking an easy job now. Did you ever think about what were the filmmakers doing some 50 or 60 years back? And here we have the memoir of Satyajit Ray. If you go through this memoir, you will get a clear-cut picture of what were the filmmakers doing some 50 years back. And what were the hurdles and difficulties they had to face on those days. Look at this. This is Satyajit Ray. And Satyajit Ray, who was a master, he was and still the greatest filmmaker of our country. We can say that one of the best ever. Satyajit Ray dealt with different types of subjects and he asked some challenging questions to his audience about their perceptions and prejudices. And Satyajit Ray put our Indian cinema on the map of world cinema with his masterpiece Padar Panchali. Please look at his profile.
Satyajit Ray was an Indian filmmaker. He was born in 1921 and was died in 1992. Ray was drawn into independent filmmaking after meeting French filmmaker Jean Renoir and viewing Vittorio De Sica's Italian neorealist 1948 film Bicycle Thieves. Ray directed 36 films including feature films, documentaries and short films. He was also a fiction writer, publisher, illustrator, calligrapher, music composer and film critic. He has also authored several short stories and novels.
I told you that this chapter is a memoir written by Satyajit Ray. Do you know what is a memoir? Look here. Memoir, a historical account or biography written from personal knowledge. It is a historical account or biography written from personal knowledge. It is a non-fiction narrative writing based on the author's personal memories. So, it is a non-fiction narrative writing based on the author's personal memories. That means memoir means ഓർമ്മക്കുറിപ്പ്. ഓർമ്മക്കുറിപ്പുകളെയാണ് നമ്മൾ എന്ത് പറയുന്നത് memoir എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. It is not a story, it is not a part taken from a novel and it is the real life experience of a person. The memories of a person is called the memoir. Let us start reading the chapter.
Project Tiger. No one can beat Hollywood when it comes to making films with animals in them. I remember films in my childhood and there were quite a few of them that had an amphibian called Rin Tin Tin. This dog's acting was more impressive than a human's. Later we got to see 3 or 4 other films with a collie called Lassie. It seemed that the director could make Lassie do just about anything. These trained dogs were famous stars in their own rights, and the money they earned was no less than what a real film star got. Their owners could easily make as much as 100,000 rupees from just one film. I realized How reverently these animal actors were treated when I happened to see the shooting of a film 20 years ago in Disney studio in Hollywood. The main character in this film was a large dog. I reached the studio to find that the shooting had not yet started. The cameraman was getting the lights ready. It is customary for the actors to be present when the lights are arranged, for they have to show the cameraman how they will walk or where they will stand in a particular shot. In the case of very famous stars, this job is done by their stand-ins. A stand-in is usually a person who is physically similar to the real star. The stars themselves arrive only when the lights are ready and it is time to take a shot. Here in Disney Studio, I noticed that a few actors were moving about in the set, and one on one side, standing quietly, was the protagonist, the same large dog. The cameraman shouted to everyone to take their positions, but the dog remained where it was. This puzzled me. Could it be that it was not required in that next shot? Before I could ask someone, a strange thing happened. From nowhere appeared a little dwarf, followed by another man carrying a hairy dog skin. Then, to my perfect amazement, the dwarf went down on all the fours on a chalk mark on the floor, just like an animal, and the dog skin was draped over him. Then he crawled from one mark to another, and the cameraman got busy with the lights. It finally dawned upon me that this dwarf was paid to be the dog's stand-in. Every animal in a Hollywood film is well trained. It is not difficult to train a horse or a dog. But have you ever heard of trained ravens? Not just one or two, but nearly 100 of them. Even this was made possible in Hollywood when the creator of some of the best suspense films in the history of cinema, Alfred Hitchcock, decided to make a film called Birds. In the story, birds from all over the world start attacking humans. Hitchcock needed a variety of birds, but what was required in the largest number was ravens. Notices were placed in the press all over the United States asking people to contact the filmmaker if they knew how to get hold of trained ravens. Someone replied within a few days. He was asked to bring his birds, and he arrived with almost 100 trained ravens. Admittedly, their training had not gone very bad. That is to say, they could not do anything that might be seen as extraordinary. But if as many as 50 ravens are told to perch quietly in a row on a specified spot, and if they obey this command instantly, isn't that pretty impressive?
Let us find the meanings of some difficult words. See, the first word is Hollywood. Hollywood means the English film world. And these are some pictures of Hollywood. You can see some pictures taken from Hollywood. Earn means obtain. Reverently means respectfully. Customary, another word which means usually. Stand-in, you might have heard the word stand-in. It means dupe. And protagonist is the main character. We call the main character protagonist. And draped means covered. Raven, it is like our crow. It is a large bird of the crow family with shiny black feathers and a rough, unpleasant cry. Raven, it is a large bird of crow family with shiny black feathers and a rough, unpleasant cry. Okay. And in these paragraphs, we have read till the fifth paragraph of our chapter, and in this paragraph, at first Ray begins his article paying respect to the Hollywood filmmakers for giving consideration and reverence to the animal actors there. And he remember a movie in which a dog called Rin Tin Tin played an important role that he had seen in his childhood days. In that movie, there was a dog whose name is Rin Tin Tin. He played an important role in that movie and whose acting was more impressive than a human's. And after that, in the first paragraph itself, after that, he also remembers another dog whose name is Lassie, whose acting was also very impressive. And he says that these trained animals, these trained dogs were famous stars and they earned as much money as a real film star got. And in the second paragraph, he is describing his experience at a Disney studio. See, and this is a video on Disney studio. Please watch this video.
Walt Disney Studios screams creative expression and history, even down to the last detail, from the parking structure to the executive building. This is the Walt Disney Studios Tour. My journey began the moment I left my car. Almost immediately, you feel the presence of Walt Disney. From the sights of the sound stages to the iconic water tower. As I made my way out of the parking structure, I was taken by the mosaic that covered each floor. This is literally what Disney dreams are made of. I exited the structure with even more excitement. Little did I know my tour would begin. Just down the lane was the legendary sound stages. In 1940, Disney began his venture into live action features and TV. During this time, Disney needed a place to work on his new projects, which eventually led to the construction of his first stage, Stage 1. His new Burbank property, Walt Disney Studios, officially had its first soundstage. One of the first and most iconic uses for Stage 1 was the filming of Fantasia. But Walt didn't stop there, and his productions needed to expand. Thus came the birth of Stage 2, which would eventually house the sets from Mary Poppins. Sound stages weren't always used for filming. During the construction of Disneyland, Stage 2 housed the Mark Twain riverboat. Just past the sound stages, this bungalow used to sit on the original Disney lot at Hyperion Studios. When Roy purchased this Burbank lot, he moved the entire building to where it sits now. It was the original home of the comic strip department and Disney Publicity. As we ventured down the street, we reached the corner of Mickey Avenue and Dopey Drive. This is one of the only labeled streets on the entire studio property and acts as a guide to the multiplane camera in the EFX department, amongst other things. Located to the corner is the Disney Legal Department and the Studio Commissary, where curators and extras alike dine together. Heading down Dopey Drive, you can see the Studio Theater where they showcase the latest films, allowing employees to screen the movies free of charge. But the real magic lies right across the street in the old animation building. The old animation building is currently the home to smaller production companies, but back in the glory days, this was a mecca for cartooning. Some of the most talented animators have roamed these halls, including Walt himself. Now the hall is lined with amazing replicas of Disney's greatest films. But what makes this building even more magical is what lies below. If you look right out this window, you wouldn't know it just by looking at it, but there is a utility tunnel that lies right below our feet. This tunnel connects the animation, paint and ink, camera and cutting departments. The primary use of this tunnel was used to protect original drawings and painted cells from inclement weather. So every day, they would push these little carts up and down this hallway to protect it from the rain, wind, or whatever might interfere with the production. It's almost spooky to look down here and see what's left of this tunnel. Obviously, it's no longer in use, but some of the creators and some of the people that know about this tunnel still use it to this day. This area may seem familiar. The exterior of the animation building was used as a location for the docudrama film Saving Mr. Banks.
Now we have seen a video on Disney Studio. Once our author Satyajit Ray happened to see a shooting in Disney Studio, and which made him realize how respectfully the animal actors were treated there. And with amazement, he understood that, he realized that even the animal actors has stand-ins as real film stars. And after that, in the 5th paragraph, he is describing the experience of Alfred Hitchcock, who was a famous Hollywood director. He need birds for his film, Birds. And this is the picture of Alfred Hitchcock, who was a famous Hollywood film director. Alfred Hitchcock needed trained ravens for his film, The Birds. And it is very difficult to get trained ravens. So he gave notice in all the newspapers in all over United States to get trained ravens. And somebody replied to his notice, and after some time he got almost 100 of trained ravens. Let us see some scenes from his film Birds.
Melanie? I want you to go as quietly as possible. Do not make a sound until I tell you to run. Then run as quickly as you can. Now, does everybody understand? Yes, all right, John, you lead the way.
Now we have completed till the 6th paragraph of our lesson, and what happened? At first, Ray began his article by giving respect to the Hollywood filmmakers for their consideration for the animal actors, and then he described the acting of two dogs, an Alsatian called Lassie and then a collie called an Alsatian called Rintintin and then a collie called Lassie. After that, in the second paragraph, he narrated his experience at the Disney studio, and he happened to see a shooting there, and then he realized how respectfully the animal actors were treated there in Hollywood, and he realized that even the animal actors have stand-ins there. And then after that, he narrates the experience of one of the greatest filmmakers of the world, Alfred Hitchcock, and his film Birds. For his film Birds, he needed a large number of ravens, and for that he gave notice in the newspapers all over the United States, and he got about 100 of ravens, and he shoot the film Birds successfully. Okay, shall we move on to the next paragraphs? Okay.
Needless to say, in our own country, it is not at all easy to find trained animals, although some films have been made in Bombay and Madras that involved working with elephants, horses and tigers. Their performance did suggest that they were used to obeying commands. In Bengal, it is sometimes possible to find clever dogs, particularly police dogs, which are quite intelligent. If one is prepared to be patient, it is not altogether impossible to get good performances out of them, as we managed to do with Bhulo in Padar Panchali. Yet, a dog might be difficult, not impossible to handle. What was one supposed to do if there was need for a tiger in a film? We had to deal with this problem too. When we were shooting Gupi Gaine Baga Baine, in the film, Gupi, who is banished by the king, wanders in the forest, meets Baga, who is also been banished. They see a tiger and freeze. But the tiger simply walks about in the forest without paying them the slightest attention. Having thought of the scene, I simply had to shoot it. But where were we going to find a tiger? The obvious thing to do was to look in a circus, since they were likely to have trained animals. As a matter of fact, one called Bharat Circus was visiting Calcutta at the time, holding shows in Martha Square. We sent someone to make an appointment with its Tamil manager and then went to meet him one morning. He greeted us warmly and ordered South Indian coffee for us. The manager heard the reason for our visit, then sent for one Mr. Tarat. He turned out to be the ringmaster. He, too, was a South Indian, very well built, with features somewhat like those of a Nepali. He was perhaps no more than 40. He showed us an old scar on his forearm, which had been caused by a tiger. We told him what we wanted. The shooting was taking place near Shuri in Birbhum. We wanted to show a tiger in a thick bamboo grove. All the animal was required to do was come out of the bamboo grove into an open space, pace gently for a while, look at the camera if possible, and then go back. Could a tiger from Bharat Circus do this job? Mr. Tarat nodded. How long will you need it for? Asked the manager. Perhaps a couple of hours for the shooting, I replied. But that would be in addition to the time it will take to travel to and from Shuri. On being told that The travel itself should take no more than 2 days. The manager agreed to put the tiger in its cage and send it in a lorry. He invited us to take a look at the tiger. Do you think it's going to be easy to send the animal free in the bamboo grove? I couldn't help asking. Mr. Tarat frowned. I'm not sure, he replied. I have never let him out of his cage on his own, so really I don't know. What? Were all our plans going to go down the drain? How could we let the tiger's trainer be seen with the animal? How could Gopi and Baga be petrified with fear if the supposedly ferocious animal was accompanied by a man? No, we could not allow that to happen. Mr. Tarat found a solution. I'll tie a wire around the tiger's neck. It will be thin but strong. If the wire was thin enough, perhaps it would remain invisible to the camera. But it was likely that the hair on the tiger's neck would be flattened by the wire, which would give the whole thing away. What if we found a collar made of tiger skin, fixed the wire to this collar, and then tied it round the tiger's neck? I asked. In a village called Nottingham, we found a suitable bamboo grove to film the first meeting between Gopi and Baga and the appearance of the tiger. Mr. Tarat reached the shooting location with the tiger. There were about 25 people in the location. A few local people took our permission to go with us to watch how we tackled the tiger. The cage on the lorry was covered. When the cover was removed, we were surprised to see not one but two well-fed and robust tigers. I decided to play it safe. Mr. Tarat explained. If one doesn't get it right, we can use the other.
Now we have read till the 14th paragraph. Shall we check the meanings of new words? Okay. Banish. Banish means send away from a place as a punishment. Then obvious. Obvious, easy to see or understand. Obvious means easy to see or understand. Third one, petrified. Petrified means terrified or frightened. Terrified or frightened. Ferocious. Ferocious means cruel or violent. The meaning of ferocious is cruel or violent. See, in these paragraphs, Ray narrates his own experience when he first shooting a film, Gopi Gaine Baga Baine. In that film, he used a tiger as an actor. And in that film, Gopi was banished by a king to the forest. He wanders in the forest and he meets Baga, who is also banished to the forest. And Gopi and Baga walked about in the forest, and they happened to see a tiger and freeze. The tiger walk about in the forest and without paying them any attention. The tiger was also walk about in the forest and without paying them any attention. That was the scene Ray want to shoot with the tiger. So for that film, Gopi Gaine Baga Baine, he needed tiger. And it is very difficult at that time in India to get a trained animal. And after that, they decided to approach a circus company. And on those days, the Bharat Circus was giving shows at Marcus Square in Kolkata. So Ray and team approached the manager of the Bharat Circus and told him or informed him about the purpose of their visit. And after some discussions with the manager agreed to give him a tiger for the shooting. And the manager gives instructions to a man called Tarat, who was the ringmaster, to do all the favors to Ray and his team in this matter. And then Ray decided to shoot the film in a village called Nottingham near in Calcutta, and Mr. Torat reached the shooting place with two well-fed tigers, and there were so many people were also present in that place to see the shooting. For the shooting, the tiger has to come out of the bamboo grove to the open space and walk gently for a while and look at the camera if possible. Then go back. That is the scene Ray wanted to shoot with the tiger. Let us read the rest of the paragraphs.
We mounted the camera on its tripod and placed it so that it faced the bamboo grove. The audience was instructed to get behind the camera and to stand as far back as possible. We had to stay relatively close to the bamboo grove, and Gopi and Baga too had to be within yards of the camera, for it was necessary to have at least one shot that showed them together with the tiger. Mr. Torat's men had fixed a 5-foot iron rod to the ground about 30 feet from the area where the tiger was supposed to take a walk. They took a thin long wire and fixed one end to the collar made of the tiger skin that the tiger was already wearing. The other end was tied firmly to the visible portion of the iron rod. The door of one of the cages was unfastened, and Mr. Torat called out to the tiger. It responded almost at once and sprang out of its cage to land on the open space outside. What followed was totally unexpected. One look at Mr. Torat's startled and helpless face told us that he was as taken aback as the rest of us. Instead of walking sedately in a dignified manner, the tiger started prancing around with tremendous enthusiasm. It leapt, it jumped, it rolled about, dragging its poor trainer who was desperately clutching the wire tied to the tiger's collar in a futile attempt to bring it under control. We stood around foolishly, watching a new and strange kind of circus which we were getting to see for free. The camera was still standing on its 3 legs, staring into the wood, but the tiger was showing no sign of making its way there. Once the tiger had calmed down, we managed to take a few shots we needed. This should have been the end of the story. But when we returned to Calcutta and looked at the scenes with the tiger, we realized that the camera had failed to work properly. The shots were too dark, so much so that the tiger was merging almost completely with the background of the trees and leaves. We had to shoot the scenes all over again. We spoke to Mr. Torat and he agreed to give it another go. We found another bamboo grove closer to Calcutta in a village called Baral. The lorry arrived once more with Mr. Torat, the tiger, the steel wire, the special collar and the iron rod. And with the lorry came the whole village. We told the villagers that they should stand at a distance of 70 feet. No one paid any attention to what they were told. The entire crowd moved as close to the camera as they could. We could not afford to waste any more time explaining and arguing, so we got the camera ready and signaled to Mr. Torat. He opened the door of the cage. The instant the door opened with a clang, our tiger emerged with a loud roar and charged straight at the villagers gathered behind the camera. The crowd, consisting of about 150 people, melted away as if by magic. After that great burst of energy, the tiger calmed down very quickly. Like an obedient child, it walked over to the spot we had chosen, paced about quietly as if it was required to, and then ambled back to its trainer. Even the camera behaved this time, which we realized 2 days later. when we returned to Calcutta and saw the scenes we had shot.
Now we have completed the lesson and see the difficult words. Robust. Robust means strong and healthy. Second one, sedately. Sedately means very calmly. Prancing, which means to move with high steps. Prancing means to move with high steps. So this, you might have seen this tripod. Tripod is a support with 3 legs for a camera. Tripod is a support which is used for a camera, to support the camera. Okay. And in the last part, he narrates, Satyajit Ray narrates his own experience, and everything is ready. He wanted to shoot Guppy Gaine Bhaga Vaina with a tiger in that film, and everything is ready at the shooting place. Everything is ready with the shooting place, and the camera was placed on the tripod which is faced to the bamboo grove, and the actors Guppy and Bhaga, they were also ready to be within reach at the back of the camera. And then they Satyajit Ray, he had also taken some safety measures, and a 5-foot iron rod was fixed on the ground, and a thin long wire was fixed at the collar of the tiger, and the other end was fixed at the iron rod on the ground for the safety. And when the door of the cage was opened, and you know that Mr. Torat reached there with 2 well-fed tigers, and he opened the door of the cage, and at that time the tiger responded quickly. The tiger responded quickly, and it jumped out of the cage, and it began to it began to walk around. It jumped out of the cage and it began to walk around. And now we can see that the tiger is not under the control of the ringmaster, and the ringmaster, Mr. Torat, he began to control that. He tried to control the tiger in a futile attempt, but he could not control the tiger. Everyone became frantic, and after some time the tiger calmed down. At that time a few shots were taken, and unfortunately after 2 days Ray realized that these shots were not taken because the camera was not working then, and it was not at all right, and all became disappointed. Ray and team, they become disappointed, and the camera was not working at that time. And after that, Ray and his team, they were not ready to give up. So he found another place in Kolkata, in Baral village. They decided to shoot the scene again with the tiger, and the lorry arrived with the tiger once more, and they started shooting there, and there are so many villagers were also present there in order to see the shooting, and the villagers were asked to move from their position, but these villagers were not ready to move from their position. And when the door opened, the tiger emerged from the cage, and with a loud roar, it emerged from the cage with a loud roar, and it jumped towards the villagers. All disappeared frantically from the scene, and after some time the tiger calmed down, and he shoot the scenes with the tiger, and it was a great success. Let us see the scene from Guppy Gaine Bhaga Baine.
Din tak, din tak, tak din tak, din tak, din tak, tak tak din tak. তোমার ঢোল যে জল পরে ফুলে ঢোল হয়ে গেছে গো।
কি নাম তোমার?
আমার নাম?
তোমার নাম তো কার?
আমার নাম শ্রী গোপীনাথ গাইন।
নিবাস?
আমলকি। তোমার?
ভর্তুকি।
তো তুমি এখানে যে?
তারাই দেশে গাদা পেটে তুলে দূরে করে দিয়েছে। চলে গেল বোধ হয়।
না, যাইনি।
See, this is a memoir by Satyajit Ray. Memoir means his memories. He is narrating his own memories. Satyajit Ray was narrating his own memories in this chapter, and first we found that he had begun his article giving respect to the Hollywood film directors or filmmakers for giving respect to the animal actors, and then he narrates his memories. He had seen the films he had seen in his childhood days, and in one film a dog called Rin Tin Tin, and in the second one another dog called Lassie. Their acting were more impressive than humans, and he says that these dogs were real stars on those days, and they were also earning money like a real film star. And after that, in the second paragraph, he is describing his experience at a Disney studio in Hollywood. And from there, while he was watching the shooting there, he realized that how respectfully these animal actors were treated in Hollywood. And then with amazement, he understood that there were stand-ins for the animal actors in Hollywood. And then comes the experience of Alfred Hitchcock, who was a great filmmaker in Hollywood. And in his film Birds, he needed a large number of ravens, and it was very difficult to get ravens at that time, so he gave notice in all the newspapers in United States, and he got about hundreds of trained ravens. And he shot that film successfully, and it was a world famous film by Alfred Hitchcock. After that, he is describing his own experience. He was shooting a film, Guppy Gaine Baga Baine. In that film, he needed a tiger as an actor. And in our country, it was very difficult to get a trained animal, and they approached a circus company, the Bharat Circus, and they went to the manager and asked and told him about their visit, the purpose of their visit, and the manager agreed them to give the tiger for the shooting, and he was asked to meet Mr. Thorat, who was the ringmaster of the circus, and Thorat helped him for providing the tiger for the shooting. And at the first time he decided the shooting at a Nottingham village in Kolkata, and with the tigers, with the two well-fed tigers, this man Tarat, the ringmaster, came to the location, and there were so many people present there in order to watch the shooting, and everything is ready there. But when the cage opened, when the door of the cage opened, this tiger jumped out and everyone became frantic. But after some time, this tiger calmed down and they were taken some shots with the tiger. But only after 2 or 3 days, he realized, Satyajit Ray and his team, they realized that it was that shooting that went to a failure, and the camera was not working at that time. So they need to take the shots again, and for the second time Satyajit Ray selected a place near Kolkata, the Baral village. In there everything is set there, and there were also so many people came there to see the shooting, and the people were asked to move from their position and they were not ready to move. Again Mr. Tarat came there with the tiger and the shooting started, and this time also the tiger jumped out of the cage, and seeing that the tiger is jumped towards the villagers, and they all disappeared frantically, and soon the tiger calmed down and they took the scenes, and it was a great success. That is the memoir written by Satyajit Ray. I think you have understood the chapter, and please write down all the difficult words and meanings in your notebook. And there is an assignment for you. You have to find out the answers for the textual questions. I think there are 20 more questions in the textbook, and find out the answers for the questions. And it is time to wind up my class. See you soon. Bye.